Hi, welcome to this lesson. Previously, we explored error handling. We also talked about the different types of errors and how you can handle them. In this video, we will learn how to use Node.js debugger and how to set it up in VS Code. The debugger is a built-in Node.js tool that allows developers to pause the execution of their code at any specific point and inspect the program states. You can also inspect the program's variables and also the call stack. It provides a powerful mechanisms for debugging and troubleshooting issues in Node.js. It also allows developers to step through their code and identify the root cause of errors and unexpected behaviors. Now, to use debugger in Node.js, we are going to follow a simple step. And to do that, let's jump into VS Code. All right, so for this demo, I have created a simple web API. Basically, it returns a to-do list for anybody that calls the API. Okay, so let me just run this now and show you exactly what it does. Okay, so we have the API up at localhost 3000, and I can preview the response. If we go to localhost 3000, it just simply shows us a list of to-do lists that is already added in the system. Nothing special here. All right, so let's go back to our VS Code. And here, we are going to attach a debugger into this project. Okay, so you can attach a debugger anywhere, but it is most important that you attach it to where you want to debug. For example, I want to debug from here. So I can attach a debugger right here. Okay, that is all you do. And next, you need to make use of Node.js or node inspect and then the file that you want to inspect. In this case, the server.js file. So always go with node inspect server.js file and then press enter. So here it shows that our debugger is started and we can start debugging this Node.js application. So the first thing to do is to open your Chrome again. And this time, I'll type Chrome inspect, just like this. And then I'll press enter. And here you would see that there is an inspector file currently running here. Okay, so this is going to be the location to your file. Okay, so I'll click on the inspect link right here, and that is going to load up a panel like this, showing us all our codes from the file that we added the inspect. Okay, so next, what we can do is to start inspecting the values of each of the variables that we have declared and also the states of each of the variables in our application. So from the left-hand side here, you see all the scripts that makes up your server or your backend application. It's basically a lot because you're making use of Node.js, and Node.js has lots of internal files right here. But everything that makes up your application is at the left-hand side. Here, you can basically see what is going on in your application. For example, under scope, you can see all the variables that you have declared and if they currently have value attached to them or not. For example, you can notice that the express is undefined because that is currently the line that we are at and we have not executed that line yet. So the express variable is undefined, and also the app variable that contains the express here is also undefined because that line has not executed yet. Okay, so you can also see other variables that are undefined and other ones that already have values attached to them. For example, the port is undefined because that is the third line. All right, so that is what scope is all about. And for scope, we also have local scope, we have global scope, and then we have core stack. All right, so let's talk about that. For local scope talks about your application and the variables that you declared yourself. While the global scope here, it talks about Node.js and all the variables and function and states that is declared within Node.js. Okay, for example, we have this at top and BTOA. Basically, they are all functions of Node.js and they are available in the global scope. Okay, so quickly we can see math, which is also a method that is available in the global scope, and you can call that, or a static class, you can call that basically to perform some mathematical operations. All right, so then under the core stack, we see links and files that basically makes up the entire program that we are building. So a large number of it is found at the left-hand side here. Anyways, in the next lesson, we are going to talk about core stack, and you're going to understand more about what it does. For now, we are going to dwell with the local scope because that basically relates to what our program is talking about. Okay, so again, you can add as many breakpoints as possible. So remember that we've added one here, and that is why we can pause this program and continue. But of course, you can pause anytime you have any uncaught errors. Like we discussed error handling before. Sometimes when we have uncaught errors, it can basically terminate our program. So you can pause at any point where you have uncaught errors. Okay, so under watch, let me close this one. Under watch, you can see that we actually have no expressions that we are watching. We have no variables that we are watching, but as we progress, we'll start to see changes more. All right, so we have these buttons right here. So if you click on the first one here, you basically resume your execution, and that is going to run through your project as usual. But if you click on this line here, it's basically called stepped over the next function. So what happens is that it's going to execute the program line by line. So if you click on step over here, it's going to execute the next line. And if you click on it again, it's going to execute the next line. So we are going to always use the step over function to see the changes that each of our variables that we've declared has. Okay, so we have other ones here. And yeah, so we have step into, and then we also have step out. Basically, you step into a function or you step out, like going back from that function. Okay, so again, we have different files at the top here that needs to be loaded before our file, and basically that is shown here. And like I said before, we have a long list of all those files right here. Okay, so let's use the step over next function. So please watch the local scope here and see the changes that we have. So if you click on it, the first thing that happens is that the express variable now has property inside. So here we have express, and it has a function called create app. Okay, so the function contains these whole properties inside, like the router, application, JSON, role, and all of this. Okay, so now that we have this create app function, we can use it to create an app. So how do we do that? We call express with this bracket right here. So let's click on step over again, and you notice that the app basically has a function, meaning that express server has been created. Okay, so till now, to do is still undefined and port is still undefined. So let's click on step over again for ports to be defined. So here we have port 3000. Okay, so we are going to continue next so that we have to do here defined, and to do that we pass an array with different to dos that we want to perform. So we click on step over again, and you notice that the to do is being populated with 5 items. All right, so next we call the get. So let's do that for that to be created, and then also the next to-do list get. Okay, post, put, delete, and lastly, we call the listing function to basically create our first server. Okay, so while this is happening, you can basically debug your applications like this. For example, you can go to console.log and see the value that is found inside each of the variables that you've created. For example, assuming we didn't see that here for to do, we can go to console.log and type to dos and click on it, and then we'll see the content of to dos right here. Okay, so assuming we have lots of variables that is declared, we can basically inspect each of them using the console here and see the content that has been populated inside. All right, so instead of using lots of console.log in your application, the debugger is created inside Node.js that you can basically use to debug your application like this. And one interesting part of using debugger is that you can run the application and add breakpoints so that whenever it gets to the breakpoint, it's going to stop, and then you see what has happened before it gets to that point. Okay, so I want you to explore more about using debugger in Node.js. It's going to save you a ton of energy debugging your application. All right, so with this, in the next lesson, we are going to look at stack trace. We are going to understand how to use stack trace to solve different problems in Node.js and also to debug our application. So see you in the next class.